Welcome to And One, episode number 4 of And One with EJ here on the Huddle Up Podcast Network. I am your host, Ernest EJ Christian, coming to you here in my studio. As you know, we do this every week, short and sweet, 5 observations of the NBA that have sparked my mind for the most part. But before we get there, a couple things I want to discuss. Number one, our thoughts and prayers continue to be for the safety for the Buffalo Bills, Damar Hamlin, as he continues to recover. You know, hopefully he's recovering. The news has been positive for the most part, but he's still in critical condition. Of course, took that tackle on T. Higgins in that first quarter of the very crucial Bengals-Bills game, and then proceeded to collapse. He had cardiac arrest. The Bills confirmed that this week. He had cardiac arrest on the field. They were able to they did CPR hit with him on the field. He was able to get his heart moving again. Obviously, it's been a very trying 48 hours for the entire, and really the whole entire sports community as a whole. News like this, is not just in the NFL, not just the Buffalo Bills, but it's also outside as well too. People are shocked and obviously pulling for the guy, and obviously we want to make sure that his health is first and foremost the priority here. This is bigger than football, obviously, so we continue to pray for our brother, Damar Hamlin, and hoping he recovers from this moving forward. Next thing also I want to touch on here before we get to my 5 observations is I apologize for not being on the Huddle Podcast last night on the live show, because last night, unfortunately, as you guys know, I have kids, I have family. So there are some nights sometimes where my kids, when they go to sleep, they sleep on time before I go to air on the show, and sometimes they just don't. And last night, my youngest son, Logan, decided to take the entire night last night and not go to sleep at all. It's been very, very, very challenging last couple of weeks, because obviously we're not coming out on the holidays. School started today. It didn't go today, but for the record, I'll explain to you later. Coming out on the holidays, of course, and they've been up late a lot. We actually just kind of just dropped all the rules the last 2 weeks and here at home, and they're up late Christmas Eve, they're up late New Year's Eve, they're up late every night for the most part, and we're trying the last couple days to recover and to balance their their bedtimes and whatnot. And my youngest son is still kind of struggling with that right now. So, it is that's just what it is. Sometimes there are moments where I just can't come through, and again, I love doing this podcast thing. Obviously, I love doing the Huddle Up Podcast every week, but sometimes things happen where I just can't make it last minute, and it sucks. It does suck, because I really want to be on the show last night too. Especially, I'm glad that Kyle and Big Jim, of course, held it down yesterday, because myself couldn't be the last minute. And of course, and our colleague and friend, shout out to Matthew Melizan, of course, who couldn't make the show yesterday either for personal reasons. I mean, of course, we're there for you, brother. But yeah, I'm glad Kyle and Jim did a great job. I did listen to the show, though. Obviously, watched it live on my phone while I was putting the little one to sleep, and the little one stayed awake even after the show was over. Honestly, but anyway, so let's get to the 5 observations right now on my mind. On this 4th episode of And One with EJ. Again, if you want to follow me on Twitter and chat with me on Twitter, EJ Christian 7 as well. Check out all my work. I'm going to be making a link tree very soon too, also to all my work. So I do a lot of work. Obviously, this show is not a priority as well too, but my main show, Earthquake Podcast, I have Earthquake Unfiltered. It's also like a side B kind of topic centric show I do as well too, once in a while. I also host I'm one of the hosts of the Takes the Wrestling podcast as well too. If you love pro wrestling, of course. So there's that. I think that's all the work I do for the time being, right? I think, right? Yeah, I think it is. All right, here we go. First observation from me. So the Denver Nuggets and Boston Celtics played this past Sunday. In a very highly contested, highly touting game. And I'll tell you what. That could be that game, which Nuggets won, by the way, pretty handily. That game could be the finals preview this year. Now, I know Boston was there last year, so Boston getting there this year may not be a surprise. We say, oh, hey, EJ, what about Denver? I mean, people always say Denver is going to be in the mix, and then they always fail every year. But here's the difference between Denver this year and Denver in other years. And that, by the way, that point is actually it's a very good point. I said in the show last week, the Western Conference is wide open. It's wide open right now. Okay, as we're recording, Denver's number 1 in the West. I already said to you guys, if I voted right now for MVP, Nikola Jokic is my MVP right now, and he'll win it for the third straight year. This Denver team seems different. When you combine that with the fact that the Western Conference is wide open, in the past you have, all of the Warriors ran away with it, or the Spurs, or the Lakers for years, and you sprinkle some Dallas teams once in a while there. Yeah, it makes sense to say, that wasn't work out. But this year, there's no runaways. Golden State, even before Steph Curry got hurt, was struggling. Now, I'm not saying Golden State's not the favorites. I still stay in the mix. But there are no runaways. That's the big thing, the runaways. So, as long as, especially Jamal Murray, who, by the way, didn't play that game against Boston on Sunday. He stays healthy. Mike Porter Jr. stays healthy as well, too. Denver, it was surprising Denver Nuggets are in the finals against the Celtics going forward. Now, obviously, we got in the East now, got the surging Nets. We get to in a second. Not the Nets, but the Bucks are hanging around, of course, too. Cleveland's a team that can be in the mix. But Denver, Boston may have been a legit finals preview. Like I said, if we're in June, we see Denver and Boston in the finals, it shouldn't be a surprise. It really shouldn't be a surprise. All right, number 2. Speaking of Nets, Jacques Vaughn, who took over the team when the Nets started, but I believe they were 2-5 when he took over, and with all the drama, Kyrie and on-court issues, and Ben Simmons can stay healthy, was not settling down yet, and now the Nets right now have the second best record in the NBA. Just out of nowhere, in a span of 3 months, we've gone from the Nets imploding in the first couple of days, 2 weeks of the season, to now we sit here in 2023, the Brooklyn Nets have the second best record in the NBA, and just a game behind the Boston Celtics now for the best record in basketball. And I'm sorry, I know Kyrie's playing better. He's doing his thing, and he's keeping his head on straight. KD, of course, MVP candidate, of course. Ben Simmons settled in, but I think all the credit here should be going, or a lot of credit should be going to Jacques Vaughn, and remember, he came into this situation with the fire, in the middle of the fire. It wasn't like, oh, well, they're surging and that, and he comes in. No. He came in, settled things down. Remember, when he took over the team for Steve Nash, Kyrie Irving was still in suspension. Ben Simmons was still in on the lineup, injuries. So you can't say, well, he burned the place down and then he just took over. No. He took over a burning building and has cleaned up real well. Right now, if you ask me who is the NBA Coach of the Year frontrunner, it's got to be Jacques Vaughn right now. Because doing what he's done, and not just turning it around, in the span he's done it. And the Nets are now 112 in a row. You got to give the guy credit. You got to. So Jacques Vaughn right now is my NBA Coach of the Year frontrunner right now as we record this on January 4th, 2023. Number 3, my apologies. I have to apologize to one man here, Donovan Mitchell. As you guys saw his historic performance on Monday night, 71 points. Yes, 71 points in the NBA game. I was someone who was saying this past offseason rather, that he's a good player, he's a top 20 player in the league, but we might have seen the peak of him. Enter Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland, traded from Utah to Cleveland. He's been balling. He's been the glue of that team, and the reason the Cleveland Cavaliers are in the mix in the Eastern Conference, top 4 team in the East right now. Okay, he's playing very good basketball. He's actually elevated his game now to another level now, which is, I thought was impossible. I got to apologize to Donovan Mitchell. I got to. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm going to tell you I'm right, obviously. You've seen my shows. You know how I get down. But if I'm wrong, I'm going to tell you I'm wrong. And, again, Don Mitchell, Spider, I apologize. Man, you're still balling. Clearly there's no level to go. Now, obviously, you want to see him. Could he do this now in the playoffs? I think he could. And this is a good Cavs team, too, on top of that. He has the pieces around him. That was a fantastic trade between them and Utah this past offseason. And this trade is obviously, through 3-4 months now of the season, has definitely elevated and put a fire on Donovan Mitchell right now. So kudos to Don Mitchell for a job well done so far as we get to the halfway point of the season, and prove me wrong thus far as an NBA player in the league. He is definitely beyond top 20 player. He's probably on a fringe top 10 right now list right now. If you did top 10 list right now and you said Don Mitchell right in that cusp, wouldn't say you're wrong. Wouldn't at all, because he has elevated his Cavs team now to be not just a playoff team, but a top 3 or 4 team in the Eastern Conference, and in a good Eastern Conference at that. Number 4, Zion Williamson out a couple weeks. It might actually hurt the Pelicans in terms of the standings, and here's why. Because right now, there's a lot of cannibalism going in the Western Conference right now. You got Denver on top of the West right now. You have Denver number 1, New Orleans, I believe. I pulled it up here real quick. Memphis number 2 in the West, and number 3 is the Pelicans. Right behind them 4, surging with 7 straight wins as is recording. Dallas Mavericks at 4. The Sacramento Kings surprised number 5 as well. The Clippers lost 3 in a row, but they're going to be in the mix as long as Kawhi is healthy. Number 6 in the West. So 1 through 6 in the West are separated by only 4 games. To be honest with you, 1 through 7, 1 through 8, 1 through 9, 1 through 9 in the West separated by only 4.5 games, and the Warriors surging as well too. So this injury can really hurt the Pelicans in terms of being that top 4 or 5 team in the West. And if they're not careful, they can be just as quick back in the play-in situation. Now, in saying that, they were successful last year without Zion in terms of getting the job done and going to the play-in and making the playoffs without Zion being there as well. But obviously, you see the impact he's made this year with this team. When he's healthy, this team is you see right now the top 2 or 3 team in the West. So this injury could actually hurt this team. So if they can hold serve, maybe be at 500, if you will, before he gets back, that should be enough to hold things down. All right, and finally, my 5th observation here on N1 with EJ. There are going to be a couple of teams that we'll probably look at. You have to look at that maybe selling before the trade deadline. Which teams you think could be sellers at the trade deadline? I'm looking at teams like the Chicago Bulls, of course, who were playing well for a while after the rumors came about them maybe trading DeMar DeRozan and a couple of players on that roster. Zach LaVine, obviously, is another guy you look at. But they've lost 2 in a row since then. They played 500 ball the last 10 games. They're definitely a team that could be selling. Toronto Raptors, another team that could be selling as well, too. Both those teams, as I mentioned, are actually outside the play-in situation right now currently. Look at teams like Washington Wizards maybe selling some stuff like veterans. How about the Atlanta Hawks? The Trae Young situation might be getting worse. They lost 4 in a row as well, too, on top of that. Those teams that could be sellers at the deadline. The Charlotte Hornets also could be sellers as well, too, at the deadline. What about teams like, let's say, I would say Utah, but no, Utah's a fresh team, so maybe Utah will stick it out a little bit. Obviously, the Lakers, I mean, if they decide to blow up again, but let's see if they get AD back and see if things get improved there. Those are the teams right now I believe that if you see an active trading deadline between now and I believe the deadline's after the All-Star break, I believe. That if you start seeing activity between then, those are the teams I believe contenders could be poaching for guys that could put them over the top going forward in their respective teams. So, like the Hawks, like I said, the Hawks, the Bulls, the Raptors, as I mentioned, Lakers. They could be teams that could be selling. Hell, maybe the Minnesota Timberwolves can sell again. I mean, they are a dumb team as it is. I mean, getting that Rudy Gobert contract and give all the pieces for that. I mean, who knows? So again, those are your 5 observations this week here on the N1 with EJ. Again, thanks for tuning in the show. Like I said, this is a short and sweet podcast, weekly, check up to date things that is on my mind. Again, I'm on Twitter, EJChristian7, Ernst Podcast as well too. Take the rest of the podcast as well, Ernst Unfiltered Podcast. I'm on Huddle Podcast every single Tuesday as well on this feed. Thanks for listening to the podcast, and we'll see you guys next week here on